It was one of those evenings where the city seemed to hum with a quiet energy. The sun had dipped below the horizon hours ago, leaving behind a dark sky dotted with faint stars that struggled to shine through the haze of streetlights and skyscrapers. Downtown Chicago was alive, but not overwhelmingly so. A mix of people heading home after work, couples enjoying dinner at cozy restaurants, and the occasional car driving by with its headlights cutting through the gloom. Mia Carter tightened, her scarf around her neck as she stepped out of the glass doors of her office building. Her heels clicked against the pavement, echoing softly in the cold night air. It had been a long day, 10 hours spent staring at a computer screen, designing logos and layouts for clients who always wanted more, faster, better. Her mind felt foggy, her body heavy with exhaustion. All she wanted was to get into her car, turn on some music, and drive home to the warmth of her apartment. She rummaged through her bag, searching for her keys. The parking lot was only a block away, tucked between two taller buildings that cast long shadows over the rows of cars. As she walked, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and glanced at the screen. It was a text from her best friend, asking if she wanted to grab drinks later. Mia sighed and typed back a quick reply. Not tonight. Too tired. Her fingers lingered on the screen for a moment before she shoved the phone back into her coat pocket. She didn't notice the slight misstep she took as she approached the row of parked cars. Her thoughts were elsewhere, on the pile of unfinished projects waiting for her tomorrow, on the growing stack of bills sitting unread on her kitchen counter, on the nagging feeling that she hadn't done enough today or any day lately. Finally, she spotted what looked like her silver sedan, or at least she thought it was hers. In her tired state, all the cars seemed to blur together under the dim yellow glow of the streetlights. This one matched the color, and the shape looked right. Without giving it much thought, she pressed the button on her key fob. Nothing happened. Frowning, she tried again. Still nothing. Stupid battery, she muttered under her breath, assuming the issue was with her key fob. Without hesitating further, she reached for the door handle. It opened easily, which struck her as odd since she could have sworn she locked her car earlier. But she pushed the thought aside, too drained to care. She slid into the seat, letting out a small groan as her muscles relaxed against the leather upholstery. For a second, everything felt normal. Then something hit her. The smell. It wasn't the sweet vanilla scent of the air freshener she kept dangling from her rearview mirror. Instead, it was a clean, masculine scent like cologne mixed with leather. Confused, she leaned forward to look at the dashboard. That's when she noticed the nameplate resting neatly in front of the steering wheel. Marcus. Before she could fully process what was happening, a deep voice startled her. "Excuse me, miss, I think you might be in the wrong car." Mia froze, her heart skipping a beat. Slowly, she turned her head toward the sound. Sitting in the driver's seat was a man, a tall black man with kind eyes and a calm expression. He wore a simple gray sweater and jeans, his hands resting casually on the steering wheel. His voice was steady, almost soothing despite the strangeness of the situation. "Oh my gosh," Mia stammered, scrambling to unbuckle the seatbelt she hadn't realized she'd fastened. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to." Her words tumbled out in a jumble, her face flushing red with embarrassment. She couldn't believe she'd made such a rookie mistake. How could she have gotten into the wrong car? And worse, how could she have sat down without even noticing someone else was inside? "No harm done," the man said, offering her a reassuring smile. His tone was warm, free of judgment or irritation. "Happens more often than you'd think. Are you okay? You seem like you've had a long day." Mia nodded quickly, still flustered. She climbed out of the car, clutching her bag tightly to her chest, as though it might somehow shield her from her own clumsiness. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just really sorry about this. I don't know what I was thinking." The man chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Don't worry about it, we've all been there. Long days make us forgetful sometimes." He paused, studying her for a moment. "Do you need help finding your car? It's pretty cold out here." Mia hesitated. Normally, she wouldn't accept help from a stranger, especially in a big city like Chicago. But there was something about this man, something trustworthy in the way he spoke and carried himself. Plus, she couldn't deny that the idea of wandering around the parking lot alone in the freezing weather sounded less than appealing. Sure, she said finally, forcing a small smile. That would be great, actually. Thanks. The man nodded and stepped out of the car, closing the door gently behind him. He was even taller up close, his broad shoulders making him seem almost larger than life. Despite his size, though, his presence was anything but intimidating. If anything, he radiated a sense of calm that put Mia at ease. I'm Marcus, by the way, he said, extending a hand. Mia, she replied, shaking it briefly. His grip was firm but gentle, and his palm was warm despite the chilly air. Well, Mia, Marcus said with a grin, let's find your ride. Do you remember where you parked? Mia frowned, glancing around at the endless rows of vehicles. Everything looked eerily similar in the dim light. Somewhere over there, I think, she said, pointing vaguely toward the far end of the lot. But honestly, I'm not entirely sure. Marcus chuckled again, the sound low and comforting. No problem, we'll figure it out. Worst case scenario, we can call a tow truck or something. As they began walking side by side, Mia found herself stealing glances at Marcus. There was an aura of kindness about him that she couldn't quite place. Most people would have been annoyed, or at the very least mildly irritated, by someone accidentally invading their personal space. Yet here he was going out of his way to help her, treating her like an old friend rather than a clumsy intruder. So, what do you do, Mia? Marcus asked after a few moments of silence. His voice was casual, conversational, as if they were simply catching up over coffee instead of navigating a parking lot in the middle of winter. I'm a graphic designer, she replied, shoving her hands deeper into her pockets to ward off the cold. Mostly corporate stuff, logos, brochures, that kind of thing. Not exactly glamorous. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. Sounds important, though. People underestimate how much design impacts the way we see the world. Mia raised an eyebrow, surprised by his insight. Not many people say that. Usually, they just assume I sit around drawing pictures all day. Well, then they're missing the point, Marcus said with a shrug. Everything we interact with has been designed by someone. It takes skill to make things look effortless. His words caught her off guard. No one had ever described her job in such a meaningful way before. For a brief moment, she forgot about the awkwardness of the situation and allowed herself to relax. And what about you? She asked, curious now. What do you do? Marcus smiled faintly, his gaze drifting toward the horizon. I work with kids, youth counseling mostly, trying to give them tools to navigate life in neighborhoods that don't always make it easy. Mia's eyes widened slightly. That sounds intense. It can be, Marcus admitted, but it's rewarding too. Every kid deserves a chance to dream big, even if the odds are stacked against them. They continued talking as they searched for Mia's car, their conversation flowing effortlessly despite the circumstances. By the time they found her dented silver sedan tucked between two larger SUVs, Mia felt a strange reluctance to say goodbye. There was something undeniably special about Marcus. His patience, his wisdom, his ability to make her feel seen in a way she hadn't experienced in years. Standing beside her car, Mia hesitated, unsure of how to express her gratitude. Thank you so much for helping me, she said finally, her voice sincere. I really appreciate it. Marcus smiled, his expression soft. Anytime. Like I said, no harm done. Just take care of yourself, okay? Life gets busy, but don't forget to slow down once in a while. With that, he gave her a small wave and turned to walk back to his own car. As Mia watched him go, she couldn't shake the feeling that their paths crossing, however accidental, wasn't entirely random. Something about Marcus lingered in her mind long after he disappeared into the night, leaving her to wonder if maybe, just maybe, fate had other plans for her. Mia stood by her car for a moment watching as Marcus disappeared into the distance. The cold wind whipped around her, but she barely noticed. Her mind was still replaying their brief encounter, The way he had handled the situation with such calmness and kindness, the way he seemed genuinely interested in her life even though they were complete strangers. It wasn't every day you met someone like that. She climbed into her car and started the engine, letting the heat from the vents warm her freezing hands. As she pulled out of the parking lot, she couldn't help but glance in the rearview mirror, one last time, hoping to catch another glimpse of Marcus's tall figure. But he was gone, swallowed up by the dark streets of Chicago. The drive home felt longer than usual. Mia's thoughts kept drifting back to Marcus. There was something about him that stuck with her, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. Maybe it was his voice, deep and steady, like he had all the answers to life's problems. Or maybe it was the way he carried himself, with a quiet confidence that made him seem approachable yet mysterious at the same time. Whatever it was, Mia found herself wishing she could see him again. When she finally arrived at her apartment, Mia tossed her bag onto the couch and flopped down beside it. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. She stared at the ceiling, replaying their conversation in her head. He worked with kids, she reminded herself. Youth counseling. That must be tough, dealing with teenagers who probably didn't want to listen to anyone. Yet Marcus had spoken about it with such passion, like it was the most important thing in the world to him. Mia shook her head, trying to shake off the strange feeling that had settled over her. It's just a random meeting, she muttered aloud as if saying it would make it true. People bump into each other all the time. It didn't mean anything. Still, she couldn't shake the thought that there was more to it. The next morning, Mia woke up groggy and disoriented. She dragged herself out of bed and shuffled to the kitchen to make coffee, her mind already racing with thoughts of deadlines and unfinished projects. Work was piling up faster than she could handle, and the stress was starting to weigh on her. But no matter how hard she tried to focus, her thoughts kept drifting back to Marcus. By lunchtime, Mia decided to distract herself by going for a walk. The fresh air might clear her head, she thought. She bundled up in her coat and scarf and stepped outside, letting the crisp winter breeze wake her up. As she strolled through the park near her office, she noticed a group of kids playing basketball on a nearby court. Their laughter echoed across the open space, reminding her of what Marcus had said about working with children. He must really love what he does, Mia said softly to herself, smiling at the memory of his words. For some reason, the image of him sitting behind that desk in his car, calmly explaining his job, made her feel a little lighter. It was nice to think that there were people in the world who cared so deeply about others. As the afternoon wore on, Mia found herself doodling absent-mindedly in the margins of her notebook during meetings. Instead of sketching logos or design ideas, she drew small shapes: a car, a street lamp, a tall figure walking away. Each stroke of her pen brought back flashes of the previous night. The leather scent of Marcus's car, the warmth of his handshake, the sound of his laugh. She realized, with a mix of amusement and frustration, that she was obsessing over someone she barely knew. That evening, as Mia packed up her things to leave the office, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a text from her best friend asking if she wanted to grab dinner. Normally, Mia would have jumped at the chance to unwind with good food and company. But tonight, she declined. She wasn't in the mood for socializing. All she wanted was to go home, curl up on the couch, and think she did. Back at her apartment, Mia poured herself a cup of tea and settled into her favorite chair by the window. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars against the dark sky. She sipped her tea slowly, letting the warmth spread through her body. Her mind wandered back to Marcus once again, this time focusing on the details she hadn't noticed before. His sweater had been plain gray, nothing fancy, but it fit him perfectly. His jeans were slightly faded, as if they'd seen years of wear. And his shoes, dark brown boots, scuffed at the toes, looked practical rather than stylish. Everything about him suggested simplicity, honesty. He didn't need flashy clothes or expensive accessories to make an impression. His presence alone was enough. Mia sighed, setting her teacup down on the side table. Why was she so hung up on this? It wasn't like she'd never met kind people before. But there was something different about Marcus, something that went beyond politeness or charm. It was almost as if he saw her, not just the surface-level version of herself, but the real Mia, the one buried beneath layers of stress and self-doubt. The days passed, and Mia tried to push thoughts of Marcus out of her mind. She threw herself into her work, staying late at the office and taking on extra projects to keep busy. But no matter how hard she worked, his face kept popping into her head. It annoyed her at first, this constant distraction. Then gradually it became almost comforting, like having a secret little spark of hope tucked away in the corner of her mind. One Friday afternoon, as Mia was leaving the office, she spotted a flyer taped to a bulletin board in the lobby. It advertised a community event happening that weekend, a youth mentoring program aimed at helping kids from underserved neighborhoods. At the bottom of the flyer was a name, Marcus Johnson. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be the same Marcus? She stared at the flyer, reading the details over and over. The event was being held at a local community center, just a few blocks away. Without giving it much thought, Mia grabbed her phone and snapped a picture of the flyer. She told herself it was just curiosity, nothing more. If it turned out to be the wrong Marcus, no harm done. But if it was him... Saturday morning came, and Mia found herself standing outside the community center, clutching a notebook and pen like she was about to attend a business meeting. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever might happen next. Pushing open the door, she stepped inside. The room was buzzing with activity. Kids of all ages milled about, some playing games, others listening intently to adults who were leading workshops. Mia scanned the crowd, her eyes searching for a familiar face. And then, there he was. Marcus standing near the front of the room, talking animatedly with a group of teenagers. He looked exactly the same as he had that night in the parking lot, except now he was wearing a bright blue t-shirt with the words, "Believe in yourself," printed across the chest. Mia hesitated, unsure of whether to approach him. What would she even say? "Hi, remember me? I accidentally got into your car last week?" That sounded ridiculous. But before she could talk herself out of it, Marcus glanced up and spotted her. His expression shifted from surprise to recognition, and then to a warm smile. "Mia?" he called out, waving her over. "What are you doing here?" She felt her cheeks flush as she walked toward him. "I, saw the flyer and thought I'd check it out," she said, stumbling over her words. "Didn't know it was you until I got here." Marcus laughed, the sound rich and inviting. "Well, I'm glad you came. This is where I spend most of my weekends. These kids keep me on my toes." Mia smiled, looking around at the lively scene. "It looks amazing. You weren't kidding when you said you loved what you do." "Nope," Marcus replied, his eyes lighting up. "Every kid deserves a shot at success. Sometimes all they need is someone to believe in them." They talked for a while, standing off to the side as the chaos unfolded around them. Mia learned more about the program, how it focused on teaching life skills, building confidence, and providing mentorship to kids who might not have positive role models in their lives. She also learned more about Marcus, including the fact that he'd grown up in a similar neighborhood, and knew firsthand how challenging it could be. "You're incredible," Mia blurted out at one point, surprising even herself. "I don't know many people who would dedicate their lives to helping others like this." Marcus shrugged modestly. "I'm just doing my part. Besides, these kids inspire me more than I inspire them." By the end of the day, Mia felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't experienced in a long time. Helping out at the event, even in small ways like organizing supplies or cheering on the kids during activities, had reminded her of the importance of connection and community. And spending time with Marcus had only deepened her admiration for him. As they said goodbye outside the community center, Marcus handed her a piece of paper with his number, written neatly in black ink. "If you ever want to volunteer again, or just grab coffee sometime, I'd love to hear from you," he said with a grin. Mia nodded, tucking the paper safely into her pocket. "I'd like that," she replied, meaning it more than she could put into words. Walking home that evening, Mia realized something important. Life had a funny way of bringing people together, often when you least expected it. And sometimes, those unexpected moments could lead to something truly meaningful. Mia couldn't stop thinking about the piece of paper in her pocket. It was small, unassuming, a scrap with a phone number scribbled on it, but it felt like something much bigger. Over the next few days, she found herself pulling it out and staring at it, as if the digits might rearrange themselves into some kind of secret message. What would happen if she called? Would Marcus even remember her? And more importantly, what would she say? She tried to distract herself by diving back into work, but her mind kept wandering. The designs she worked on seemed dull compared to the vivid memory of Marcus's smile. Even her usual routine, coffee in the morning, lunch at her desk, late, nights scrolling through social media, felt empty somehow. For the first time in years, Mia realized how isolated she had become. Her life revolved around deadlines and obligations, leaving little room for anything else. One evening, after another long day at the office, Mia sat on her couch staring at the ceiling. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the heater. She picked up her phone and opened her contacts app, hesitating before typing Marcus into a new entry. Just having his name saved felt like a step forward, like she was acknowledging that this wasn't just a fleeting thought anymore. But calling him still felt daunting. Finally, on a chilly Thursday night, Mia decided to take the leap. She grabbed her coat, stepped outside, and dialed his number while pacing back and forth on the sidewalk. Her heart raced as the phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times, then a familiar voice answered. "Hello?" Mia froze, suddenly unsure of what to say. Hi, Marcus. It's Mia, from the other week. We met when I got into your car by mistake." There was a pause, and for a moment Mia feared he wouldn't remember her. But then he laughed, a warm, friendly sound that immediately put her at ease. "Of course, I remember you. How could I forget someone who walked into my car like it? Was theirs? Are you okay? Everything all right?" Relief washed over Mia, and she let out a nervous laugh. "Yeah, everything's fine. I just wanted to see if you were free sometime. Maybe we could grab coffee or something?" "That sounds great," Marcus replied without hesitation. "I'm actually free tomorrow afternoon. There's a cafe near Lincoln Park. It's cozy, not too crowded. Does that work for you?" "Perfect," Mia said, smiling despite the chill in the air. They exchanged details and hung up, leaving Mia standing on the sidewalk feeling lighter than she had in weeks. The next day, Mia spent far too long deciding what to wear. She rummaged through her closet, trying on outfit after outfit, only to toss each one aside. Nothing seemed right. Finally, she settled on a simple sweater and jeans, pairing them with her favorite boots. It wasn't fancy, but it felt comfortable. And authentic. That was important, she told herself. This wasn't a date. It was just 2 people getting to know each other better. When she arrived at the cafe, Marcus was already there, sitting at a small table by the window. He waved when he saw her, his face lighting up with a grin. Mia felt a flutter of nerves as she approached, but they quickly faded when he stood up to greet her. "You made it," he said warmly, pulling out a chair for her. "I ordered us some drinks, hope you don't mind. I guessed you'd like a latte." "Thanks," Mia replied, slipping off her coat and sitting down. "You guessed right." They started talking almost immediately, their conversation flowing effortlessly. First, they stuck to safe topics: the weather, the decor of the cafe, the quirky barista who kept humming show tunes. But soon they delved deeper. Marcus shared stories about growing up in Chicago, about the challenges he faced and the people who helped shape him into the person he was today. Mia listened intently, captivated by his words. There was a sincerity in the way he spoke, a raw honesty that made her feel like she was seeing the real him. In turn, Mia opened up about her own life. She talked about her job, her struggles with burnout, and the sense of emptiness that had been creeping up on her lately. She didn't usually share these things with others, at least not so openly. But something about Marcus made it easy. He didn't interrupt or offer unsolicited advice. Instead, he listened, nodding occasionally and asking thoughtful questions. That showed he truly cared. As the hours passed, the cafe grew quieter around them. The barista flipped the sign on the door to closed, and the soft glow of string lights above their heads created a cozy atmosphere. Neither of them noticed the time until a gentle chime from Mia's phone reminded her of the hour. "Oh, wow," she said, glancing at the screen. "It's already 8 p.m.? I can't believe we've been here for 3 hours." Marcus chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "Time flies when you're having fun, huh? I haven't talked this much in ages. You're easy to talk to, Mia." She smiled shyly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Same goes for you. I feel like I've learned so much about you, and myself, tonight." They lingered for a while longer, reluctant to end the evening. Eventually, though, the barista gave them a pointed look, and they both laughed as they gathered their things. Outside, the air was crisp, and the streets were lit up with twinkling holiday decorations. They walked together toward the subway station, their footsteps synchronized as if by instinct. "So," Marcus said as they reached the entrance, "does this count as our first official hangout? Or should we call it research for future coffee dates?" Mia grinned, feeling a spark of excitement she hadn't felt in years. "Let's go with coffee dates. I think I could get used to this." Over the next few weeks, Mia and Marcus began spending more time together. Their meetings weren't planned or formal. They happened naturally, like breathing. Sometimes they met for coffee, other times for dinner or a walk through the park. Each encounter left Mia feeling more connected to him, more certain that their paths crossing hadn't been an accident. One Saturday afternoon, Marcus invited Mia to join him for a volunteer event at the same community center where they'd first reconnected. This time, she came prepared, armed with art supplies and a willingness to help. Together, they worked with a group of kids on a mural project, painting vibrant colors onto a blank wall. Watching Marcus interact with the children, Mia saw a side of him she hadn't fully appreciated before. He was patient, encouraging, and endlessly kind, treating each child as if they were the most important person in the room. "He's amazing, isn't he?" A woman beside Mia whispered, nodding toward Marcus. She introduced herself as Lisa, another volunteer. "He's been coming here for years. The kids adore him." Mia nodded, watching as Marcus knelt beside a young boy, helping him mix paint, colors. "Yeah, he is," she said softly. "I'm lucky to know him." Lisa smiled knowingly. "Well, I hope you hold on to that. Guys like Marcus don't come around often." As the weeks turned into months, Mia found herself changing in subtle ways. She started prioritizing her well-being, setting boundaries at work, and making time for things that brought her joy. Marcus encouraged her every step of the way, cheering her on when she succeeded and offering support when she stumbled. In return, Mia did the same for him, listening to his frustrations and celebrating his victories. Their bond deepened with each passing day. One snowy December evening, as they strolled hand in hand through Lincoln Park Zoo's holiday lights display, Mia realized something profound. Marcus wasn't just someone she enjoyed spending time with. He was someone she trusted completely, someone who made her want to be a better version of herself. "Do you ever think about how crazy it is that we met because of a mistake?" Mia asked, breaking the comfortable silence between them. "If I hadn't gotten into your car that night." Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her, his eyes reflecting the colorful lights around them. "I don't think it was a mistake," he said softly. "Things happen for a reason, Mia, and I'm really glad they led me to you." His words sent a shiver down her spine, not from the cold, but from the depth of emotion behind them. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. His expression was nervous yet determined as he held it out to her. "Mia," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "You walked into my life when I least expected it, but now I can't imagine it without you. Will you let me be part of your journey forever?" Mia stared at the box, speechless. Inside was a delicate bracelet engraved with the words, "Together, always." Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at Marcus, seeing not just the man who had helped her find her car that fateful night, but the person who had changed her life in ways she never anticipated. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Marcus slipped the bracelet onto her wrist, his hands shaking slightly as he clasped it. When their eyes met again, they both smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning of their story. The months that followed were some of the happiest Mia had ever known. Her life, which had once felt like a series of obligations and deadlines, now seemed filled with color and purpose. Marcus was at the center of it all, a steady presence who brought warmth and light into her world. Together they explored new parts of the city, tried foods neither of them had tasted before, and shared countless conversations that made them feel closer with each passing day. Mia began volunteering more often at the community center where she'd first reconnected with Marcus. At first she worried she wouldn't know how to connect with the kids or contribute meaningfully, but Marcus encouraged her every step of the way, showing her how to listen, how to offer guidance without being overbearing, and how to find joy in even the smallest victories. Over time, Mia grew comfortable in her role, finding fulfillment in helping others just as Marcus did. One Saturday afternoon, while working on an art project with a group of teenagers, Mia noticed one boy sitting quietly by himself. His name was Jamal, and he rarely spoke during activities. She approached him gently, sitting down beside him and offering a smile. "Hey, Jamal," she said softly. "What are you drawing?" Jamal glanced up briefly, his expression guarded. "Nothing special." Curious, Mia leaned closer to look at his sketchbook. What she saw took her breath away. A detailed drawing of a tree surrounded by swirling patterns of stars and clouds. It was beautiful, full of emotion and imagination. "This is incredible," Mia said honestly. "You're really talented." Jamal shrugged, but there was a flicker of pride in his eyes. "Thanks." From that moment on, Mia made it a point to check in with Jamal whenever she visited the center. Slowly but surely, he began opening up, not just to her, but to the other kids as well. Watching him grow more confident reminded Mia of why she admired Marcus so much. He had a gift for seeing potential in people, for believing in them even when they struggled to believe in themselves. As spring arrived, Mia and Marcus started dreaming about the future. They spent lazy Sunday mornings talking about their goals, their fears, and the kind of life they wanted to build together. For Mia, it was a revelation. She had always been so focused on surviving each day that she hadn't allowed herself to think beyond the immediate. But Marcus's optimism was contagious, and soon she found herself imagining possibilities she'd never dared to consider before. One evening, as they sat on Mia's couch watching a movie, Marcus turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "Have you ever thought about traveling?" he asked. "I mean, really getting out there, seeing the world, experiencing new cultures?" Mia tilted her head, surprised by the question. "Not really. I've always been too busy with work, and I guess I never thought I could afford it." Marcus grinned, his eyes lighting up with excitement. "What if we planned something? Just the two of us. A trip somewhere completely different, somewhere that challenges us to step outside our comfort zones." Mia hesitated, unsure if she was ready for such a big leap. But the idea lingered in her mind, growing stronger with each passing day. Eventually, she agreed, and they began planning a summer trip to Costa Rica. The thought of exploring rainforests, swimming in turquoise waters, and immersing themselves in a foreign culture filled Mia with equal parts excitement and nervousness. When the day finally came, Mia couldn't believe how quickly the time had flown by. As they boarded the plane, she felt a mix of anticipation and gratitude. For Marcus, for this opportunity, and for the changes he had inspired in her life. During their 2 weeks in Costa Rica, they hiked through lush jungles, zip-lined over treetops, and learned to surf on choppy ocean waves. Every experience brought them closer, teaching them not only about the world, but also about themselves. On their last night in the country, they sat on a quiet beach watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky blazed with shades of orange and pink, reflecting off the water in shimmering ripples. Mia leaned her head against Marcus's shoulder, feeling a deep sense of peace. "I can't believe how much has changed since we met," she said softly. "I feel like a completely different person." Marcus wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. You've always been amazing, Mia. You just needed someone to remind you of that. She smiled, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. And I'm so glad it was you. Back in Chicago, life resumed its usual rhythm, but with a newfound sense of balance. Mia continued to volunteer at the community center, finding joy in mentoring the kids and watching them grow. Marcus remained as dedicated as ever to his work, though he also made time for Mia, ensuring their relationship stayed strong despite their busy schedules. One chilly autumn evening, Mia received a call from Lisa, the woman she'd met at the community center months earlier. Lisa sounded excited, almost giddy, as she explained that the organization was hosting a fundraising gala to support its programs. She asked Mia if she would design the promotional materials for the event. "I know it's short notice," Lisa said apologetically, "but I think your talent is exactly what we need to make this a success." Mia hesitated at first, unsure if she could juggle the project alongside her regular workload. But Marcus encouraged her to take it on, reminding her of how much she loved using her skills to help others. With his support, she accepted the challenge, pouring her heart into creating posters, flyers, and digital ads that captured the spirit of the community center. The night of the gala arrived, and Mia stood nervously in the corner of the elegant ballroom, clutching a glass of sparkling water. She had never attended an event like this before, and the room buzzed with energy as guests mingled and admired the displays showcasing the center's impact. To her surprise, many people approached her throughout the evening, praising her designs and thanking her for her contributions. "You've done incredible work," Marcus said later, wrapping an arm around her waist. "I'm so proud of you." Mia blushed, feeling a swell of pride. "It feels good to use my talents for something meaningful," she admitted. "This place means so much to me, and to you." As the evening drew to a close, the organizers announced that the gala had raised enough money to expand the center's programs, reaching even more kids in need. The crowd erupted in applause, and Mia felt tears welling up in her eyes. She looked at Marcus, who was clapping enthusiastically beside her, and realized how lucky she was to share this moment with him. Winter returned, bringing with it snow-covered streets and twinkling holiday lights. Mia and Marcus embraced the season wholeheartedly, decorating their apartment with garlands and ornaments, baking cookies, and attending festive events around the city. One snowy evening, they decided to revisit Lincoln Park Zoo's holiday lights display, the same place where Marcus had given her the bracelet nearly a year ago. As they walked hand in hand beneath the glowing arches, Mia reflected on how far they'd come since that fateful night. Back then, she had been lost, weighed down by stress and uncertainty. Now she felt grounded, hopeful, and deeply loved. "Do you remember this spot?" Marcus asked, stopping near a cluster of shimmering trees. "This is where everything changed." Mia nodded, smiling as she held up her wrist to show him the bracelet still clasped securely around it. "How could I forget?" Marcus reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small box similar to the one he'd used before. Mia's heart skipped a beat as she watched him kneel down on one knee, his expression serious yet tender. "Mia Carter," he began, his voice steady despite the emotions evident in his eyes. "You've brought so much light into my life. You inspire me every single day to be better, to dream bigger, and to cherish the moments that matter most. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" For a moment, Mia couldn't breathe. The world seemed to fade away, leaving only Marcus and the love shining in his eyes. Tears streamed down her face as she nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, yes, of course." Marcus slipped a simple diamond ring onto her finger, his hands trembling slightly as he stood up to hug her. Around them, strangers paused to watch the scene unfold, some clapping and cheering as Mia and Marcus embraced under the glittering lights. As they walked back to the car, Mia felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey they'd taken together, for the challenges they'd overcome, and for the promise of a future filled with love and adventure. Life wasn't perfect, but with Marcus by her side, she knew she could face anything. The months leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind of excitement and planning. Mia had never imagined herself as someone who would enjoy organizing such a big event, but with Marcus by her side, everything felt less overwhelming and more like an adventure. They worked together, dividing tasks and making decisions that reflected their personalities, simple, heartfelt, and meaningful. One Saturday morning, they sat at the kitchen table with notebooks and pens spread out before them. The sun streamed through the window, casting golden light over the room. Mia sipped her coffee while flipping through a binder filled with ideas for the ceremony. "I think we should keep it small," she said thoughtfully, glancing at Marcus. "Just close friends and family. Something intimate." Marcus nodded in agreement. "Exactly what I was thinking. We don't need anything fancy, just something that feels real." As they talked, Mia realized how much easier it was to make decisions when they were on the same page. They agreed on a venue, a cozy garden surrounded by trees, and chose soft pastel colors for the decorations. Instead of hiring a professional photographer, they asked one of Marcus's cousins, who loved photography, to capture the day. Every detail was infused with warmth and care, reflecting the love they shared. In the weeks before the wedding, Mia found herself reflecting on how much her life had changed since meeting Marcus. She remembered the girl she used to be, the one buried under piles of work, too exhausted to dream about anything beyond surviving each day. That version of herself seemed so distant now, almost like a stranger. The person she had become was stronger, braver, and more open to joy because of Marcus. One evening, as they walked through the park near their apartment, Mia paused by a bench and turned to him. "Do you ever think about how different things might have been if we hadn't met?" she asked quietly. Marcus smiled, his eyes soft with affection. "All the time. But honestly, I don't believe in what-ifs. Everything happens for a reason, Mia, and I'm grateful every single day that our paths crossed." She leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder. "Me too." On the morning of the wedding, Mia woke up early, unable to sleep from a mix of nerves and excitement. She stood by the window, watching as the first rays of sunlight painted the sky in shades of pink and orange. Today was the day she would officially start her new chapter with Marcus, not just as partners, but as husband and wife. Her best friend arrived soon after, helping her get ready. As they curled her hair and applied makeup, Mia couldn't help but laugh at how surreal it all felt. "I never thought I'd be here," she admitted, looking at her reflection in the mirror. "Not like this, anyway." Her friend grinned, clasping her hand. "You deserve every bit of happiness, Mia, and Marcus is perfect for you." By the time they arrived at the garden, everything was set up beautifully. White chairs formed neat rows facing a wooden arch adorned with flowers. Guests milled about, chatting softly as they waited for the ceremony to begin. The air smelled fresh, carrying hints of blooming roses and freshly cut grass. When the music started playing, Mia took a deep breath and linked arms with her father, who had tears in his eyes. Walking down the aisle felt like stepping into a dream. All eyes were on her, but she only had eyes for Marcus. He stood beneath the arch, tall and handsome in his navy blue suit, his gaze locked onto hers with such intensity that it made her heart race. As they exchanged vows, Mia's voice trembled slightly, but she didn't falter. Each word came straight, from her heart, promising to stand by Marcus through every challenge and celebrate every triumph. When it was his turn to speak, Marcus's voice was steady, yet full of emotion. His words painted a picture of their future, a life built on trust, laughter, and unwavering support. "I promise to always see you," he said, holding her hands tightly, "to see your strength, your kindness, your beauty, not just on the outside, but deep within. You are my partner, my best friend, and my greatest gift." Tears streamed down Mia's face as she listened, overwhelmed by the depth of his love. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, she threw her arms around Marcus, hugging him tightly as cheers erupted from the crowd. The reception was a joyful celebration, filled with laughter, dancing, and heartfelt speeches. Friends and family took turns sharing stories about Mia and Marcus, highlighting the qualities that made them such a wonderful couple. One story stood out, a tale from Lisa, the volunteer coordinator at the community center. Mia and Marcus are two of the most selfless people I know, Lisa said, raising her glass. They've dedicated so much of their time and energy to helping others, and it shows in everything they do. Their love isn't just about themselves, it's about lifting others up, too. That's why I know their marriage will be extraordinary. Everyone clapped, and Mia wiped away a tear, feeling grateful for the people in her life who had supported her along the way. Later that night, as the party began to wind down, Mia and Marcus snuck away for a quiet moment alone. They wandered to a secluded corner of the garden, where twinkling fairy lights illuminated the path. The air was cool, and the stars above sparkled brightly. "I still can't believe this is real," Mia said, leaning against Marcus as they stood beneath a tree. "It feels like a fairy tale." He chuckled, wrapping his arms around her. "If it's a fairy tale, then you're my happily ever after." She smiled, resting her head on his chest. "And you're mine." Months later, as they settled into married life, Mia and Marcus continued to prioritize the things that mattered most: each other, their work, and the community they served. They rented a larger apartment closer to the community center, allowing them to spend even more time mentoring the kids. Together, they launched a new program aimed at teaching teenagers valuable skills like budgeting, resume writing, and public speaking. One afternoon, as Mia watched Jamal deliver a confident presentation to a group of volunteers, she felt a surge of pride. The shy boy who once hid behind his sketchbook had transformed into a young man, capable of commanding attention and inspiring others. It was moments like these that reminded her why she and Marcus did what they did. That evening, as they sat on the couch with cups of tea, Marcus reached for her hand. "You know," he said, "we've come a long way since that night in the parking lot." Mia laughed, shaking her head in disbelief. Who would have thought getting into the wrong car could lead to all of this? "It wasn't the car," Marcus replied, squeezing her hand gently. "It was you, and me, and whatever force brought us together." Mia leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling content. Life wasn't without its challenges. They still faced obstacles and tough days, but they faced them together. With Marcus by her side, Mia knew she could handle anything. As they drifted off to sleep that night, Mia thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a simple mistake to a lifetime of love, their story was proof that sometimes the most beautiful things in life are born from the most unexpected beginnings.